In the meantime, I want to bring in Democratic Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury of New Mexico. She serves on that House Oversight Committee. So, Congresswoman, there is a local angle for you now to this investigation, and we'll get there in just a moment. But first, on Les Wexner, I wonder how much you think that you can trust his testimony. Because, for example, he said his relationship with Epstein ended in 2007, but there are emails sent between the two men dated in June 2008. There are transactions years after that, too. So, I mean, there's already inconsistencies.
Yeah, well, what we know is that Les Wexner is not only a key figure in the FBI's investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and his crimes. It's our understanding that Jeffrey Epstein, as a billionaire who was able to move in the circles in which he exploited potentially thousands of women, was made possible because of his financial ties to Les Wexner. And so as we have undertaken this investigation, he is not only a key figure that the FBI and the Department of Justice identified as a co-conspirator, but who the survivors themselves have identified as a key figure. And we know at least one survivor has alleged that she was sexually abused at his estate. There's also an allegation in the FBI files that Mr. Wexner himself committed an act of sexual assault. So we have a lot of unanswered questions. About a half dozen members of the committee on the Democratic side are there in the deposition and asking the hard questions.
And I think what's important here is, A, I thought it was notable when he was subpoenaed. I thought it was notable when you got this deposition on the books. And now I'm just sort of wondering what the Oversight Committee ends up doing with the information that they get. For example, with someone like Wexner, the bar for a criminal probe might be high, but evidence gathered from this deposition and future committee work might provide a basis for, say, a civil case to be brought by the survivors, for example. Is that one of the ultimate goals here for members, to provide a roadmap, even though you can't do anything in a prosecutorial fashion, to maybe give the survivors one that they could follow?
Absolutely. Our larger investigation is to fact find and to provide an evidentiary basis for potential prosecutions and potential civil litigation. That's the entire purpose of this, is to tell the truth, to piece together the story, and to pursue justice where the U.S. government failed to do so. Now, it's unclear, as I said, what Wexner's association and financial ties were to Jeffrey Epstein. But I think it's also important to understand that Jeffrey Epstein's crimes were not just sexual assault and rape, but also we understand that there were vast financial crimes and money laundering. There were international crimes potentially committed, and Les Wexner is very much at the center of all of those. And so whether or not criminal or civil cases could be brought against Mr. Wexner remains to be seen, both at the federal level and the local level. So we will go where the evidence takes us.
Yeah, because I think the entire question looming over all of this is, you learn all of this new information, what comes of it? And so as we talk about tangible outcomes, there is one new thread in your home state of New Mexico. This is focused on Epstein's Zorro Ranch. Lawmakers there passed a bill to form a bipartisan committee that would look into his ties in the state. The measure they passed reads, quote, "The House of Representatives is concerned that the failure to investigate the alleged criminal activity at Zorro Ranch and the risk of potential consequences of that activity continue to affect the safety and welfare of the state, and that continued legislative inaction threatens public confidence in state government." Makes sense to do this, but why wasn't it done until now?
Yeah, well, New Mexico is taking action where the federal government has failed. We are the first state in the country to pass state legislation to investigate Epstein's crimes within our state borders. But also, the Zorro Ranch that Jeffrey Epstein purchased in 1993 was a known site of sexual abuse. We have multiple survivors who came forward to the FBI. The FBI did investigate potential allegations of rape and sexual assault at that property, but strangely, they never issued a warrant to search the property. There's also very chilling statements in the records that were released last week that there was potentially a double homicide on the property. And so we're investigating all of these crimes. And New Mexico taking action is really important because we did it on a bipartisan basis. And this is a bipartisan commission. It passed unanimously. This should not be partisan. This is about accountability and justice.
Yeah, you and I have had this conversation so many times in the halls of Congress, in forums like this one, that this really does feel like an issue that should be nonpartisan. And I think the thing that I keep coming back to and that continues to stick with me is that people clearly seem to know about Epstein's abuse in some form and done nothing about it. Even after he was released from jail in 2009, the New York Times notes that in the 10 years between his state and federal indictment, quote, The Epstein files show that during that decade, he was both rebuilding and curating his vast elite social network. It's bigger than politics. It speaks to a system that works for the wealthy and well-connected, no matter how grotesque their actions. And I mean, as we go through this investigation, which will continue to span the months, how are you grappling with that point? How should we start grappling with that point?
Yeah, I think, a lot of folks have pointed out that this is not just about a two-tiered system of justice where people who have means are able to evade the law and those who don't are held accountable. But this is larger than even the legal and justice aspects. This is about culture. This is about the fact that for countless generations, women have been used as objects of sexual exploitation. And in the case of Jeffrey Epstein, as a currency as they transacted and moved in their powerful circles. And we're here to stand with the survivors to say this has to stop. We're going to change the law. We're going to change the system. And we're not going to allow this kind of exploitation to happen ever again. And so this is not only about the law and about justice and about changing the system and getting accountability, but about changing the culture itself to protect women and vulnerable people from sexual exploitation.
And finally, Congresswoman, just to double back to Les Wexner, I just want to make sure we've been seeing these depositions be released, transcripts, videos. Is that what you expect we're going to have happen here?
Yeah, ultimately, the committee chairman made that call, but he has publicly released all of the depositions thus far.
OK, yeah, that precedent does seem like it's been set. I like to double check. Congresswoman Melanie Stansbury, thank you for coming on. Always appreciate your time.